Jango Fett was the chosen bounty hunter by Count Dooku to be used as a template for the clone army, having impressed the Sith Lord with his skills in killing Jedi and other qualities that were desirable for a galactic-wide military force. Over the years, Dooku came to respect Jango Fett, not only for being a great warrior, but for his calm and gentlemanlike manner, which was quite contradictory to his brutal persona when he fought. This mainly stemmed from Jango's code of doing business with clients, in which he went out of his way to be as respectful and polite to his clients as possible, especially to those that held great power and wealth. Dooku's respect for Jango quickly turned into trust, where he eventually revealed to the bounty hunter of his Sith name, Darth Tyrannus. This Sith title was only known to a small handful of people in the entire galaxy, and among that list would soon include Boba Fett, after Jango told his son about his dealings with Dooku, for he wanted his son to know as much as possible about the business he did as a bounty hunter as a way to prepare him for the future. Dooku would soon discover this fact later on, when Boba accidentally referred to him as Tyrannus rather than his public name during a meeting. Anyway, by the time of Jango Fett's death at the hands of Mace Windu on Geonosis, Boba was left completely on his own with nowhere to turn to, or so he initially thought. After coming out of the initial shock of watching his father get decapitated, and finishing his weeping that took place right after, Boba buried his father's body in the orange Geonosian sands, and labeled his makeshift grave with a J and F from droid body parts to mark it as Jango Fett's. Once he finished hiding his father's armor that was too heavy for him to carry, and that he would retrieve later, Boba only took the helmet and made his way to the ship Slave 1 that was parked in the hangar near the arena. Escaping in the midst of chaos during the Battle of Geonosis, Boba made his way back to Kamino to retrieve a datapad that Jango had told him to open once his death came. After obtaining the datapad and opening it, Boba realized it was a guide for his survival in the galaxy created by Jango. Among tips on how to get by in a cruel and uncaring galaxy, it also listed a name of a person Boba ought to seek out for help, Count Dooku. At first, Boba had no idea how he was going to get into contact with Dooku, but that didn't matter, as the very man he was searching for had hired a bounty hunter to retrieve him. As from Dooku's point of view, there was an unpredictable 10-year-old who knew the secret that he was Darth Tyrannus, a secret he wanted to keep from the rest of the galaxy for the time being. So Dooku hired a bounty hunter to capture Boba and bring the child to him. Boba was caught a couple of days after Geonosis, and eventually he was brought to Raxus Prime. Despite being brought to a literal junk world, Dooku had a makeshift underground mansion built there. When Boba finally met with Dooku once again, he portrayed himself the same way Jango did whenever he met with the Count of Sereno. Boba was polite, calm, and spoke only when spoken to. At first, Dooku was kind, apologizing to Boba about Jango's death and how he felt responsible for it. He then mentioned how he looked forward to seeing Boba grow up to become a bounty hunter as great as his father, and that he felt he owed Jango to look over his son while he was still young, and that he even hoped to mentor the young boy. All of this sounded great to Boba, who was for the first time excited about his future since his father's death, but for some odd feeling deep in his gut, he felt an unusual cold chill whenever he was near Dooku, like he wasn't the man he portrayed himself to be. Anyway, after that meeting, Boba was taken to his room within the underground makeshift mansion. He was restricted from going anywhere in the underground settlement, as apparently some sort of serious operation was taking place nearby. Boba, of course, got quite bored being in his room and eventually snuck out when the guards were not nearby. He explored the underground mansion until he finally got out and saw the massive mining operation that was taking place nearby. After talking with a few of the hired miners on the site, Boba discovered they were digging up a piece of an ancient Sith artifact known as the Force Harvester, which was the power source of the superweapon known as the Dark Reaper, a weapon that would go on to be used against the Republic during the first month of the Clone Wars, before eventually being destroyed by a group of Jedi. Anyway, back to Boba Fett. He soon realized he had to get back before getting caught. He tried to sneak back into the underground mansion, but was caught by his guard, who took him straight to Count Dooku's office. When confronted at what he saw, Boba initially tried to lie, but Dooku saw right through it, later remarking that Boba was not only clumsy in getting caught, but an awful liar. Boba got defensive following that remark, to which Dooku responded with that perhaps he was wrong about assuming he could mentor Boba, and that it'd be better to just get rid of him, as he was too big of a risk to keep around. Boba then foolishly tried to blackmail Dooku by telling the Count that he had told someone else about his secret identity of being Darth Tyrannus, and that if something were to happen to him, this secret would be leaked. Boba then demanded access to his father's credit accounts and to be allowed to leave. but Dooku called the child's bluff and ordered his guard to execute the reckless boy. However, right before Boba was to be killed, a Republic task force led by a Jedi general attacked the underground settlement he was in on Raxus Prime. During the battle, Boba was able to escape his captors and be taken in by the Republic clones, who assumed he was a lost orphan. Boba eventually escaped from a Republic orphanage that he was sent to, later meeting up with Aurra Sing to continue his journey in honoring his father's legacy of being a bounty hunter. The bounty hunter and separatist commander Dirge would later be sent after Boba, but the young boy was able to evade and trick the centuries-old bounty hunter into a trap that resulted in him being engulfed in an explosion. Although the explosion didn't kill Dirge, who was able to regenerate his body shortly afterwards, it did stop him from pursuing Boba, as Dooku wanted Dirge back in the battlefield. Boba Fett knew that the information he held of Count Dooku being Darth Tyrannus was extremely valuable, yet he feared to ever use it, knowing the wrath the Sith Lord would bring to him. There were only 2 occasions where Boba told this information to another being. First was to a separatist bodyguard who had Boba at his mercy, only releasing him after being told of this vital information, but this separatist bodyguard got killed before he was able to tell anyone else. The other person that Boba told was actually Palpatine, right near the end of the war. Boba had contacted the Republic and informed them that he held vital information on Count Dooku. His true purpose in doing this was to get near Mace Windu to assassinate his father's killer, but he of course ultimately failed in killing the Jedi Master once he arrived at the Supreme Chancellor's office. Despite this, he ended up meeting Palpatine in person regardless, telling the Supreme Chancellor the truth on Count Dooku being the Sith Lord named Darth Tyrannus. Palpatine calmly responded with a, "I know," later telling Boba that he also knew who he was, as the true son of Jango Fett, and that they both shared a common enemy. Finally, Palpatine told Boba that he looked forward to using the young bounty hunter's services in the future, before giving Boba a small artifact that was worth a small fortune. After that exchange, Boba kept Dooku's secret to himself, and he remained in service to Jabba the Hutt as a bounty hunter until the Galactic Empire came to power, in which Boba would serve as well when needed. Thanks for watching this video. Help support the channel by becoming a member on our Patreon page, and be sure to subscribe for more videos like this one. And as always, may the Force be with you.